So the object here is to win.
No dough, no show.
Sounds to me like you guys are a couple of bookies.
Show me the money.
Welcome back to Beyond the Odds. I'm your host Shane, and this week's episode is a little different as we welcomed our first guest. A pioneer in content creation supporting the edge betting community, he delivers transparent advice, sharing his personal experiences with Plus EV and recently live arbitrage betting. And let me tell you, this was the most fun I've had so far making this podcast. And I hope it's just as entertaining for you guys, so sit back and enjoy the one and only Billy C.
You talking to me? You talking to me? Who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?
All right, Billy, welcome to the show. It's really an honor to have you on, brother, and we appreciate you joining us.
Oh, boys, thanks for having me. First and foremost, I just, appreciate you having me on and very excited to talk shop and truly an honor to be the first guest to my knowledge, I believe, that's on the pod. So happy to be here.
That's right. You definitely are, man. And, I distinctly remember watching your content as I was like coming into this space. That's how influential it was to me. So I can imagine, the amount of people that you reach and you help in this space. So I think that's what it's all about for us too, is like really putting the word out there and trying to make people successful.
That's very kind of you to say, because if you would have caught the early stuff, it looks like a third grader edited it. And that was actually my best efforts. So, but I'm glad that at least it helps some people connect with others. So that's what it's all about, trying to reach as many as we can, providing some insights and details that maybe aren't shared as publicly or openly as they used to back in the day.
Fun fact, Billy's the first person I ever came across doing Odds Jam stuff. So I have to, shout out the GOAT for that. I wouldn't be in this without you, Billy.
Look at that.
We wouldn't really be in here for any of it if it wasn't for Alex Monahan. I would definitely say that.
Very
Truth.
true.
Well, Billy, tell us how long you've exactly been in the game and sort of a little bit about your journey to edge betting.
Sure, I'd love to. So if you guys and the listeners will indulge me, it's kick back, sit back, relax. It's going to be story time with Billy C. So essentially, I got into edge betting specifically in 2021, but prior to that, growing up on my mom and dad's side of the family, just outside of Pittsburgh, is where I'm raised. That's why if I sound a little funny, folks, I'm a Yinzer. So we had I was the only one, cousins, aunts, anybody that was number one, addicted and love sports. Not just the Pittsburgh sports, but everything sports related. I followed it very closely. And then number two, as I got older, apparently I'm the only one that has a propensity for financial risk or high risk, if that, and that's where sports betting came into play. So, classic kid growing up right around my 8th grade, 9th grade year, 2003, 2004. That's the World Series of Poker, Chris Moneymaker. Poker was, if you were around that time, it was everything and everywhere. So one of my best attributes is that I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough. So I tried my hand at poker in high school, $5, $10, $15 games, realized pretty quickly that I wasn't quick enough to pick up on everyone else's tells, previous hands. So naturally I thought to myself, well, sports betting, I watch sports all the time. Like I can make money. So was working at a golf course, had a guy that knew a guy that was a bookie. We all have been there before, a guy that knows a guy. And so senior year of high school, I start betting on sports. And I start off in the NFL season. Now, my personal checking account was $1,500. Okay. Now, this is 2006, 2007 for you young bloods out there. I'm rocking a flip phone, right? There isn't smartphones. And my mom, God rest her soul, was helping me balance my checking account. Okay. Trying to just set me up for, financial stability, to teach me the ways of life down the road, which I wasn't learning in school at the time. So I'm betting roughly between $200 to $400 a play on the NFL as a senior in high school. And I broke even on the NFL. And for anyone out there, if you ever talk to someone and they say that they broke even betting on sports, that means they lost a little bit of money. They might not have lost a lot of money, but they lost money because nobody breaks even. And if I would have made money, I would just tell you. So I get lucky during the NFL season where I lose a little bit, go on to college basketball, and somewhere around February before March Madness, I go on a bender where I lose $1,200 in a weekend. So I'm laying in bed at night trying to think about, should I take Georgetown or Providence on a Sunday night for Monday's games? And eventually I'm nervous about that. Plus my bank statement's coming in the mail here pretty soon from my mom. And while I had the money to pay it, how am I going to explain to my mom that I lost all this money? So I do the one thing, and if anyone's ever been like down the dumps, negative EV, when I was a kid and I was born, my grandparents bought me savings bonds, right? New little Billy comes into the world. Let's set this kid up for success. So no shit, I went to the bank and cashed out my savings bonds from my grandparents to help offset the losses for gambling. Now, it wasn't everything. I still owed some money for my personal checking account. Didn't know how to explain it to my mom. So I broke down and told them, and they sent me to Gamblers Anonymous classes. Again, no one in the family gambles. My parents didn't know what to do. So I went to GA, heard some awesome stories while I was in GA. So I put that on pause until 2018, 2019. Pennsylvania is one of the first states that comes to legalizing sports betting. So naturally at this time, I know I'm not smart enough to make any money. I haven't discovered OddsJam yet. So, if anyone knows, pre-COVID for sports betting bonuses, sign-up bonuses, they were lucrative. Alex Monahan talks about some of the early signups making, these sports books like DraftKings and FanDuel were just handing out cash left and right. Well, after a round of golf on a Sunday, my first initial deposit on a BetMGM and FanDuel account in Pennsylvania was $20. And looking back at that now, I'm like, oh my God. But I'm placing bets. Not much is going on. I get divorced in 2021 and I'm moving to Arizona. And this is where so many people, you guys have this experiences in your life where things just kind of work itself out, interestingly enough. So we're going to get now into arbitrage. That's where I was first introduced to sharp betting. So back in 2018, when sports betting was legalized, two of my close friends were running an arbitrage scheme, but they weren't using a software. So my friends throw me a going away party the day before I get in a U-Haul and drive across to Arizona for a job in finance that I did not care about. It was just a paycheck, a means to an end working in finance. It was what it was. I know that they're running this arbitrage scheme, and what they were doing is if DraftKings was offering a 50% profit boost on the UNC Duke basketball game, my buddies would get on the phone with each other every day for 15 minutes and say, all right, I'm going to put the boost on UNC for $25 max bet, 50% boost. My other buddy's going to wager it on Duke on his book, and they're going to split the profits. So I always laugh in the comments when people are like, $4 for an arbitrage bet. Like, why would I ever like take that money? And I'm like, dude, I literally know guys that are grinding out $2 to $5 profits a day, and they're splitting the profits at times because not every time they're getting boosts. They were just looking for inefficiencies between FanDuel and DraftKings. So they understood the power of compounding, which anyone that's new to sports betting, they might not understand how powerful that is, not just in finance, but in sports betting in general. So they run this scheme, and I hear at the going away party, they're telling me about this arbitrage, and I work in finance. I should know what arbitrage means, but I don't give a shit about my job, so I really don't pay attention. So the night before I move, I go on, slap in arbitrage betting on YouTube, and who do you think I come across? I come across Alex Monahan. I come across Matt Modi and Randall Knack. And so these three guys I see on OddsJam, and they're really the only ones that I'm paying attention to listening about arbitrage. So I'm driving across the country, listening to these guys. I'm all excited, but I didn't figure out what was going on with Arizona with sports betting. Well, just as fate would have it, I arrived in Arizona on a Tuesday in early September 2021, and sports betting was being legalized in Arizona 2 days later. That Thursday night game, Buccaneers Cowboys, the Bucs just came off winning Super Bowl 55. They are going to kick off the season like they do now in the NFL. I had no idea that sports betting was going to be legalized in Arizona. It just happened to work out that way. So I'm going to sound like a grandfather here, but back in my day when I signed up with OddsJam, they didn't have live arbitrage. They didn't have live positive EV. The sports books had it, but OddsJam didn't have that capability. So in terms of learning arbitrage, and that's all I consumed. Like, I remember when I signed up, it was the only thing that I used on the platform. They had this, it was the middle option of the plans that they offered that you could buy. And then one day after like a month, and it only took me like a couple of days with arbitrage for like the switch to flip and to realize like, yo, I can make a lot of money. And I'll never forget it. One day I placed an ARB, like a couple weeks in, I placed like a $500 ARB on a player prop on DraftKings for the NBA. I go to place the $800 side over at BetMGM, because, at this point I'm thinking, dude, I'm about to like make bank for the rest of my life. Like I'm going to go tell my job to go fuck off here in like a couple weeks. Like this is it. And then I go submit that bet on BetMGM, and I thought I died. I literally thought I died because the wager said you can place a max wager of like $47.13 because MGM does that stupid shit where they have you like with the weird, I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, so there's this thing called limits. So I noticed that OddsJam was offering, and so I arbitrage bet basically from halfway through September through October. And then I noticed OddsJam was offering this other plan that was more expensive than my monthly plan that I was paying. And I was like, well, you got to be able to make more money if they're charging you more. And so, I went in and learned about positive EV. And that's where you two and AT come in so handy, is that I really neglected arbitrage betting starting November, December 2021 until a month ago. I would throw in the occasional types of bets. And to kind of wrap up the story here with Billy C, is my ego got in the way of sports betting. And so what I mean by that is I think that arbitrage betting has a number of positive effects in just terms of how simple the strategy is. And also, if LeBron doesn't play in the Lakers game, like if you're an arbitrage bettor, who cares? But if you're a positive EV bettor, that's a really big deal. That affects all the markets in the game. So that's something that I loved about arbitrage, is the simplicity, not just behind the strategy, but just the mental side of it. You don't have to worry nearly as much. So I really devoted the next 3 years or so of learning positive EV betting, thinking I really believe you go from checkers to chess when it comes to arbitrage and positive EV. So I devoted a lot of my time to it. And while I was profitable, I wasn't as profitable as I really sought, what I was really hoping for. And seeing you guys and being able to connect with all three of you, even though AT is not present at the moment, was immensely helpful in my live arbitrage, because I do think that the live betting wave that has happened in the last, like year and a half or so is a complete game changer. So that's my story with edge betting. That's how I kind of got started into everything. And I just happened to click on the right YouTube video at the right time and then move to one of the states that just happened to literally, be opening up for sports betting, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, I think your story resonates with everyone because although it's personal and it has some personal aspects to it, the foundations of it are similar. Like that game you were talking about your friends running, I did it with my friends. I saw these edges in the market, but had no idea it was happening like, every day in every market on its own. I was just creating these things. And so like when I finally discovered arbitrage, it was the same exact reaction, right? I bet that's a lot of folks' journey, and they get it, man. It is such a big deal.
It
And I like
definitely is. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Shane, but it's also the fact that as a kid growing up, there was a very deep innate desire to become a profitable sports bettor. And throughout all my life's journeys, and my father's best advice to explain to me that nobody makes money sports betting, coming from a small town in PA, nobody makes money. You might get hot for a day or two, but no one does it. It really fueled when I found OddsJam. I cannot tell you the feeling it just drove me to want to dive deeper into this type of space, because it really, finally checked off a box that I wanted so badly when I was in my teenage years.
when you see the math, when it really sinks in, yeah. And just telling people that I have this like sense of fulfillment and joy and personal, satisfaction when I bring someone into the game and the switch goes off for them too. So, beautiful stuff, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was kind of the basics. The whole reasoning behind the YouTube channel and creating content was when I would watch content on YouTube myself years ago. For the listeners that maybe don't know, from 2020 till now, the amount of content in the sharp betting space has exploded. It is absolutely insane, the amount of information. This podcast is a great example of it, where you can find great insights. And so years ago, watching this content, most of the time, and I understand it now, but everybody would just talk in just like in generalities. Like you just need to find sharp bets that have an edge. And I would be screaming at the TV like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, can you explain to me in a step-by-step detailed process, like what does that mean? What does a sharp bet mean or an edge mean? And so that's where I really aim to kind of fuel with my content, is to try to create a step-by-step manual for someone that just doesn't know anything about sports betting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, I mean, you have a friggin' amazing story, bro, and we definitely appreciate you sharing that. And I kind of just had like a follow-up question to kind of what you were talking about. So we know that you mainly been an EV better, right? But you're doing this whole live arb journey that you started this past month. First off, I just kind of wanted to ask you, how is that journey going? And to follow up that question too, what is your plan going forward? Is this only going to be your goal for this month, or what's going to be like the split of your bets going forward? Are you going to stick to live arbs? Are you going to go back to EV, or kind of like a 50-50 thing?
Well, I really appreciate that, AF. And you've obviously been very helpful and instrumental in the process for the past the half month of March that I've been utilizing it. So it would be very ignorant of me to ignore the amount of money that has been consistently rolling in with arbitrage. Now, I have the plan is moving forward is if I wasn't a content creator, I would just live arbitrage. It's just simple, it's easy. I can also set my schedule. It's very concise time. I just have to worry when the games are going on or when the bulk of the games are going on. If there's not a lot going on a Tuesday night, then who cares, right? Just take the night off. But as a content creator and also my innate desire to solve positive EV betting, I will start to mix some of that into the portfolio. But I think at least for now, and something is going to be for at least the rest of the NBA season is going to be focusing on live arbitrage and then working on it also with baseball. I think something that gets lost with a lot of sports bettors is each league, whether it's the NFL or the MLB or the NBA, the things that were working during the NBA doesn't necessarily correlate to the MLB in terms of opportunities. So typically I'll ride this baby out until the end of the NBA season and then kind of reevaluate for baseball in terms of, is it better to EV bet or just live arb?
We're definitely anxious to see how these new books, the sweepstake books and some of the exchange books, have an impact on the baseball season.
Yeah, there is. I think for most beginning sports bettors, I think live arb could be very attractive for baseball just because of how many breaks there are within the game. And that should hopefully provide more opportunities, even if there aren't as many markets that you can wager on with baseball compared to the NBA.
My experience last year is there's definitely opportunities, but they come and go pretty quick. That's what kind of made me get really heavy into EV last summer was, just the opportunities weren't as easy as NBA. But EV in baseball, last year was amazing for me. I know you probably had a couple seasons under your belt there. But this is kind of a good question. I was going to ask you, is there any sport that you particularly like to bet more than another?
Yeah, it's a great question. So normally it would be the NBA. And the NBA is king when betting, but this year, at least with player props is just a topic that is so difficult. I think it's difficult from a top-down sports betting strategy. It can be tougher than other approaches to crack in terms of trying to make a consistent profit. So
I agree.
I enjoy betting the NFL. And then when the NFL season ended this past year, which went very well for me, I was so excited for the NBA and college hoops, but it hasn't been as fun as I envisioned it at the end of October. So baseball is finally, last year was my first year that I made money. The previous 2 seasons I didn't make money. And I think whatever I kind of focused on last year, I'm going to try to stick with this year, which one of those being mainline, pitcher strikeouts using FanDuel as a sharp. But yeah, I would say NFL and NBA for sure. But I'm excited for baseball to see if we can maybe double down on back-to-back winning years.
Yeah, AF has some really good track records with that. So again, we're glad to share as a team with whatever we come up with, man. We'll let you know how it's going.
It's very kind. And guys, just in general, for the listeners, with how kind ATAF and arbologists are with, their information, this is the power of partnerships and networking, connecting with other sports bettors in the space, because you can, this is how you find out about edges out there that, maybe not everyone is aware of, because it's a constant cat and mouse game. So, the more people that you can, put together on a team and share information with each other, the more valuable and profitable you can be.
I want to get your take on some advice for someone new coming into the edge betting community, right? So they've discovered what arbitrage is. They're understanding what plus EV is, and they're trying to decide, how am I going to start this journey, right? So give us your insight on how you think someone should start with when they should jump to live, maybe some insight on when they should include plus EV.
Yeah, it's a great question. So in terms of arbitrage, I think I've definitely changed my tune with you guys, kind of opening my eyes to live arbitrage. So it's definitely always about early on. You need to plan. Planning is very important. So a lot of times you see OddsJam, you see this arbitrage, and then you just start jumping in right away. And if you could just like take a day to just plan things out in terms of how much money do you actually have, right? If you got a girl or you got a wife, or if this is for the females out there, if you have a husband, how much money can you actually utilize to get behind on this strategy until you can make believers out of them, right? Because first you have to believe yourself and then them. Plan out what sports books are available to you. Plan out the sign-up bonuses, right? You got to attack the sign-up bonuses first. It's the easiest money that you're going to make. So before you even get into live arbs, that's where promo hunting is going to be so key. And that's where I think most people maybe make the mistake, is that if you can maybe promo hunt a little bit first on that free trial, that can really help you out. But you guys have mentioned before with arbitrage, going after the books, if you have a lower bankroll that's under $1,000 or $2,000, going after books that are quick payouts, ESPN Bet, FanDuel, DraftKings, that are going to pay you out. Some ESPN Bet pays you out in a matter of minutes, so that you can then, if you only have $200 you're working with, you can then reinvest that cash. Eventually, everyone, in my opinion, that has a curious enough nature will graduate to positive EV betting. But arbitrage is a great starter because you can quickly understand the liquidity in these markets. Not all markets are the same, right? A player prop isn't the same as a money line play. A WNBA player prop is vastly different than an MLB totals. It's in terms of the amount of money that you can wager. So understanding that not all of these books are created equal as well. And I think that's where the arbitrage journey can really help you out. And then you kind of get into plus EV betting. But there's also some people, you're going to learn your risk tolerance right away. Like, it's a different story placing an ARB when you're placing $20 on one side and $25 on another side compared to placing $500 on one side and $900 on the other. So it's just a different story. And so, some people, they might not like that risk tolerance and they don't have a stomach for that, and that's okay. But for those that want to go beyond, it's going to be no different. When you go from arbitrage to EV, even if you're placing $300-$400 on one side for an ARB, you want to tread softly with EV betting. This is a brand new arena. Don't come in cocky and brash and think that you're just going to be able to take over and beat this game because it's arbitrage. It's a completely different game. You need to pay respect to it first and start slow. Crawl before you walk, and then, walk before you run.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't agree more. This happens all the times in my DMs, right? Someone will show me a calendar and unfortunately it's red, right? And I'm like, oh, all right, like, what are you doing? What's your strategy, man? Oh, I just started EV betting 2 weeks ago and I'm down, a couple grand. And, I'm asking them like, all right, like how many bets are you getting in? What's your bet size? What books you using to DVig? Just trying to get like their general strategy. And, a lot of these guys are just, dude, I don't know. I'm just taking what's on the page. I'm sending $300. I'm betting like 5 things a day. I'm like, dude, all right, like, let's talk. We gotta, first off, let's lower your unit size. Let's get more volume in, right? And then let's talk about, just learning about the market, like you said, right? Like you're gonna learn which books are sharp, which books aren't sharp, and just all these different types of strategies.
It's a pro and a con when it comes to OddsJam, because it's a pro in terms of how many more markets, and whether you're using OddsJam guys or a different, odds screener. If they add more markets into the mix, that's a positive because you have more options. But the problem is that if you're new to sports betting, you don't understand that a first half total corners in an EPL match is not the same as the puck line on the Devils versus the Rangers. It's completely different. So, understanding that the higher liquidity that markets have, when you do find an edge positive EV betting, you should have more confidence. And so that's where sometimes I like to dip my toes into that 1% to 2% range from money lines and spreads. But sometimes I'll wager a little bit more because you start to formulate your own opinions based off of all the wagers that you're placing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I have, believe it or not, like a very low risk tolerance. And then maybe it's because I started with arbitrage, made all this money over the first several months. And now it's like, I don't even want to see red, right? But understanding the value of plus EV, dipping my toes into it, really asking, AF, best ways to go about this. And I went with the Alex Monahan method where he talks about, whether I was putting few dollars or no dollars, just using the OJ tracker at some points to just see how this thing goes, right? Test what it would be like, and see those results before I actually start investing real capital in it. And so there are ways to it can be of no overhead for you to test these theories out and make a plan for yourself before you decide to invest money.
I agree with you because a lot of people, and this is just the way the world works now, nobody has patience. No one has patience at all to put in the time and the effort. So, guys, this didn't happen overnight for any of us. Arbitrage, obviously, it's a little bit more simple. It's a simpler strategy that you can make money. But with positive EV betting, as I mentioned earlier in the interview here, is that basically I started at December of 2021 and I've been going ever since. And I still struggle with it at times. Like, it's taken me a long time and a lot of bumps in the road to still try to formulate, what markets I should go after. So that's where like these social sweepstakes sports books, especially like a Fliff, and these books that offer their fake currency coins that have no monetary value, paper trading can be very invaluable, along with using the bet tracker at OddsJam to just track some of these plays that maybe you were going to wager on. But as you guys know, it's completely different once you put your actual, capital down compared to just paper trading.
100%. And I like to use Pickett as well too, right? It'll really break it down by sport, bet type and stuff like that. And just using all this information, like you mentioned, that used last year, Billy, right? Using FanDuel as a sharp for strikeouts, right? Like you found that out, that edge maybe last year, or the year before, and that's something that you can bring into the next season, right? Like I have a bunch of these little tips and tricks that I've learned over the last couple of years, just tracking, and you can bring that information to the next season and attack that market a little bit harder.
Exactly. And I think with positive EV betting, for any of the listeners out there, there's 3 sharp guys and AT is a 4th sharp. There's a lot of sharp sports bettors out there that make money. And what you're going to find out is, and I learned this early on with OddsJam when I was a user and I would go on their coaching calls just to like learn about how I could use the tools. Every single person that plus EV bets goes about it differently. So you and yourself, you're going to start out using any kind of software and you're going to be a robot, right? You're going to copy and paste these plays and you're just going to go with it. But if you don't take the time to learn, invest in your education, and take bits in, because if you take advice from everybody, you're going to go crazy. You have to formulate your own strategy over time, and just really put in the time and the effort. And then that's where you're going to, it's iron sharpens iron. So that's the way that I look at it over the course of your journey. So I have a question for you too, if you don't mind.
Send it. Fire.
Which is, let's say we're looking at the next 3 to 5 years, do you think your daily betting portfolio mix is going to be the same as it is now, or do you see it moving in one direction or the other?
Great question. I think personally, I'll always arbitrage bet to some extent, just because it's that guaranteed money, right? We all got bills to pay at home. If I can continue to do that and the books allow me to do that with limits, then I'm always going to do it to an extent. But I really love EV, and it's becoming a big part of my game already. It's probably nearing close to 50-50 at the moment. It's a lot less strenuous than arbitrage, right? Arbitrage can feel like a grind sometimes, especially live arb, right? You might sit there 10-15 minutes, get nothing, then you might hit a few, go another 10-15 minutes, nothing. It can be a little strenuous, right, on your mind and stuff. But EV, for the most part, especially pregame and even live's not that bad, right? It's much more casual. You only have to get one side in. And I think, the ceiling is a lot higher too, especially like we said, as you get experience and you understand which markets are more profitable than others and which books are easier to attack, right? Like, you're not hedging the other side, right, of your bet, and you're just letting that one value side ride, and the ceiling ultimately could be bigger long term. So I think in the next few years, it'll slowly start to shift more and more EV, but I'll never leave arbitrage alone.
Yeah, I would answer almost the same way. It's, I've gotten so used to arbitrage and to see the gains from it that as long as it's a possibility for me, I'm going to continue to do it. At what level will be determined by my available accounts, the markets in general, the books continuing to limit, like how does the industry move toward allowing us to do this at a more profitable margin. So that's why introducing Plus EV, I went through February where I had, no P2 accounts, basically. If you look back at my calendar, I talked about it in some of my X feeds and things like that, where I introduced positive expected value at that time because it was a way for me to test it and see how I would do without arbitrage. And I turned a profit, although a much smaller profit. I was betting in margins that made me feel comfortable as I was, getting loose into the positive expected value realm. But I'm the same way as AF. Like, I definitely see, I've already started to introduce and will continue to introduce more. But as I said before, I'm very risk averse, I should say. So I'm going to go slow and start and keep with bet sizes that make me feel comfortable until I'm ready to unleash. But when I do, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are definitely my saving grace because I've been like 99.9% EV and I am now being like, yeah, we need to like maybe make this more of a 50-50, or maybe it's a 60-40 ARB, 60% with ARB, 40% with EV, to kind of see more consistent gains roll in, because when you do maybe go through some losing days, that ARB money there is going to help, not sting nearly as much. And then when you do catch fire on EV, then, it's just going to be, gasoline on that bonfire, which is going to be incredible. The next like thing that I'm interested in, I don't know if you guys have all have had this before, but for myself moving to Arizona here in a couple of months, there's a lot of casinos, sports books, DraftKings and Caesars and MGM. And the next like part that I'm really looking forward to trying to figure out is not how quickly can I get kicked out of the casino for sports betting, but how can I, because I know there's no way to just finesse this and get in and get my money down because the eye's in the sky, right? But like a Desert Diamond is a casino that's not far away from Scottsdale. It's a Canby book. And so, as you guys know, for EV betting specifically, guys, because it's going to be impossible, I think, to live ARB or ARB at all. But how can I finesse these books when I'm trying to get, maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand down?
Yeah, good point. And I mean, I'm a horrible storyteller, but I'll tell you guys like a 1-minute story about my experience at MGM and almost getting kicked out. And then maybe we can, work together to figure out a better way than what I did. So this is NBA playoffs last year, and I'm at MGM, and I had the same exact idea as Billy, right? I brought my laptop, I'm sitting down, grabbing a bite to eat, and I have the OddsJam feed open. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm ready. I'm loaded. All my accounts are loaded up online. I'm at MGM, wicked soft book. I'm going to try to do some arbitrage here on their kiosk, since their app has me limited to, like Billy said, 97 cents or something on my friggin' NBA player props. So yeah, I'm sitting down, I'm waiting, nothing's really popping. Then all of a sudden I get an alert, right? And it's like a 14% arbitrage opportunity between FanDuel and MGM. I'm like, holy shit. I checked the apps. Yep, it's all right on the apps. Let me run over to the kiosk and see if it's on the kiosk. And it was, right? And it was Josh Giddey assist line. And MGM had it flipped, right? So I don't even know. The under was supposed to be like minus 165 and the over was supposed to be like plus 125, and they had the line flipped, right? So I was getting like plus 125 on both sides. So I had, a couple FanDuel accounts, let's just put it that way, at my access. And, they're funded. And I'm like, all right, how much can I get down at MGM? And this MGM kiosk would only let me get down $250. So I'm like, damn, what the hell? Like, that's like blue balls right there, right? I thought I was going to make a shit ton of money. And some guy I see next to me, I don't know if he's sitting the same line or something else, but I see him, $250, hits it, prints out the ticket, and restarts the kiosk, and he bet something again. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's basically what I did, right? I fed 250, hit it, ended my session, fed 250, hit it, end the session. I did this 23 times. So, so I had over $6,000 on fucking Josh Giddey's over assist, and then I'm on FanDuel and I have over $6,000 on Josh Giddey under assist. I'm on friggin' cloud nine, dude. I'm like, yo, I just secured $1,600 profit, yada yada yada. It's like a 2-hour ride for me, mind you. So I'm riding home, wicked happy, texting everybody. You'll never believe what I just got. And I go home and I'm a little nervous because I'm like, damn, I don't want to take that 2-hour ride the next day to go cash these friggin' tickets. And then 2, I'm like, I hope they friggin' pay me out. So I'm watching the game, and of course, I forget which way it was, but whatever I needed to not take that ride, end up going the other way, right? So MGM won, FanDuel lost. Next morning, I got to drive up there. Someone gave me a tip, and they're like, oh, dude, all you have to do is go to the kiosk and just scan all your tickets, and it'll give you one big ticket of like all your money. I think it was like 13 grand. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. So I go, I scan the ticket, and it says, this ticket is locked. Please go to the cage window. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? It's a few minutes before the window opens. I'm in the bathroom. I'm like shitting my pants. I go up to the window, and immediately I'm like, hey, man, I'm just trying to cash this ticket, but it says it's frozen. And like the sportsbook manager comes like rushing out. Oh, yeah. I got this. I'm like, oh, fuck. So he's like, yeah, give me your ticket. So I hand over my tickets, and he just starts like scolding me. Like, dude, you can't do this, yada, yada, yada. You know better. I'm like, I don't know better. This is like my first time ever here. I've never really done this shit before. So he's like, all right, take a seat. I had to hand over my license, like the whole 9 yards. But and end of the story, long story short, is he ended up paying me out. But he just scolded the shit out of me. And then he came from behind the counter, gave me the money, and he's like, hey, listen, man, like if you can make money here, that's awesome. Yada yada. But like the traders are pretty damn pissed. Just do me a favor and like don't wager here today. Come back tomorrow if you want. And before, like he was telling me like, oh yeah, like if you ever want more than 250, just come up to the counter, we'll give you like $1,000 on like a player prop. So I brought that back up. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, man. Like, I'll be back this weekend and I'll make sure I come to the counter, to get those higher limits. And then his whole tone changed at the end. He's like, yeah, traders are friggin' pissed, dude. I can't promise you what limits they're going to give you, this and that, if you come back. So I haven't been back, to be honest, just because one, it's such a far ride. And I'm like, I don't even know if it's worth it.
That's a hell of a story. Love it.
Yeah. So not that the casinos don't know this, but it's similar. And I have a 45-minute drive to Bet Rivers to downtown Pittsburgh, from where I'm at. And obviously being out in Scottsdale, there's going to be, the drive won't be nearly as far. But what I normally do, and this is just for plus EV betting guys, because I know that the eye's in the sky. So I will normally, as soon as because it's such a long drive, when I get to the casino, I got to take a leak. So I go in, I rock a piss, and then when I'm in the bathroom, usually in the stalls with the doors closed, I know, or at least I think I know, there's no eye in the sky there. So I'll open up my OddsJam app. I'll filter specifically for Bet Rivers, and I'll look for positive EV bets. And then I remember 3 or 4 of them in my head, because you can't have your phone right next to the kiosk. They don't let you do that, right? So I'll just remember 3 or 4 bets with the odds and what they are. And then I'll go to the kiosk, those little kiosks there, and then I'll go ahead and place the bets. But if the odds change or the odds move, or God forbid, if I forget the odds and I screw it up, then, that's another story. But and then, I'll just go chill, place those bets. I'll chill out, whatever, grab a drink or go play some other games. And then if I go to the bathroom again, I just, now obviously there's a pattern. They're going to see I go from the bathroom straight to the kiosk, but I try to hide my activity on my phone using OddsJam, because I know there's a million cameras in the casino.
No, definitely. And I've been to the ESPN that's about 30, 40 minutes away from me too. And I've been pretty bold. I mean, no one's yelled at me like, hey, you can't have your phone, but I have like one of those, like black screen protectors or whatever. That's like pretty dark. I don't know if the eye in the sky can see through that or not, but it gives me a little bit of peace of mind, like, hey, maybe they can't see that I'm friggin' on OddsJam right now. But I agree. I mean, that's definitely something I want to get more into. And I wish locations were closer. So, I mean, for you with MLB season, that would definitely be an angle that I attack.
Yeah, it is funny because all of us here, our bankrolls are, a little bit significantly higher than when we first started. So, to us now, maybe $100 to $250 bet doesn't quite move the needle as much. And I think, like as the manager there at MGM says, I think that's when you start to have to form relationships with people at the front desk to try to get the money down. But if we are arbitrage betting, then time is really of the essence. We don't have time for chit chat.
Yeah, there's a Bet Rivers, probably within an hour of me. I've never, gone there yet, but I think the experience is going to be worth it. After these stories, I've got to go try. Yeah. Well, as we wrap things up, Billy, let me ask just a few more questions here. Giving your perspective again for someone that might be listening that's sort of worried about how long they can do this, whether it's arbitrage or plus EV, what kind of advice or how do you see the landscape for someone in that mind frame?
That's a great question. So the first thing that you need to ask yourself, and you might change your opinion as your journey goes, but you need to find out, what do you want out of sports betting? Do you just want to maybe take your family on a vacation or help pay maybe a mortgage payment off, but you understand that maybe these limits are going to happen? That's okay, right? Or if you're looking to really say like, yo, I want to quit my job and I want to do this full time, then you're going to need to work on partnerships. But bottom line, your personal accounts are only going to take you so far. And I don't think enough people understand this, whether it's the people, us 3 guys here chatting, or the professional sports bettors in the world, or these betting groups. They all have people that run to go grab more fresh accounts for them. So your personal accounts are only going to take you so far, and you can make really good money off of your personal accounts, arbitrage or positive EV betting. It's just that's only going to last you so long. And then you're going to have to figure out a way to either just get out of the game and get as much money as you can and say adios, or start talking to friends and family and people that you trust, like have been mentioned before here on the pod, And that's how you're going to extend the life. So anyone that's making a lot of money sports betting on X or on social media in general, and you're like, how is this person making thousands of dollars month after month after month? Well, it's because they're harnessing the power of partnerships and multi-accounting.
100%.
Yep. We're totally transparent about that. 100%.
Which enough people definitely aren't. A lot of people try to hide the fact that that's a reality. And I think, all of us agree, like, we should just be transparent and bold and give people, a real taste of reality in the sports betting, ecosystem.
Yeah, that's the last thing I would add to cap off. And again, I really appreciate you guys having me on, is anyone, and this isn't really that, it's pretty simple advice that everyone probably already knows, but like, if you see guys on YouTube or on social media, the guys that have like $200,000, $300,000 stacks of cash and like the Vegas Daves of the world, like, yo, bro, $5,000 for a pick. Like, you need to, even if it's on Twitter, like, everybody has an agenda and an incentive to try to push something. You need to question everything. So once you get into this arena and you start to do this, and then you can understand, that's when you're really going to learn, like, oh, this guy is a legit better, or maybe that guy just grabbed a loan for $200,000, placed an arbitrage bet on 2 different books, and is just showing me the ticket of a winning ticket on the video. Like, you can't try, you have to really do this yourself. Take the time to invest, and trust me, the fruits of your labor will come out later. But then you'll know for sure, like, who's real and who's full of shit.
Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today, Billy. Thanks for joining us, man. The insight's been great.
Billy.
The stories were fucking fantastic. Number one. But just for a reminder, you guys, you can catch Billy on YouTube at Billy C24. Also check him out on X. Just search for Billy C. There's great content. He's live streaming all the time. I'd love to get on there and join in conversation and give my 2 cents on anyone that has some questions about arbitrage specifically. So, let's build this community together, guys.
100%, guys. I really can't thank you enough for having me on. And, at the end of the day, everyone that's on this pod right now is willing to help you listeners out there with whatever and whenever you want. Have any questions? Nothing's a dumb question. So love to have you boys on the stream or on YouTube videos in the future. I know we've done something with AF before on the OddsJam channel, which was awesome. So would love to do it with you as well, Shane. But thanks again, fellas.
Thank you, Billy.
Yes, sir, Billy. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Odds. Send questions or comments to the show by messaging us on X at BTO_podcast or by emailing the show at beyondtheoddscast@gmail.com. Interested in OddsJam? New customers get a free trial and 35% off their first month by using our code BeyondTheOdds at checkout. Stay sharp, and we'll see you next week on Beyond the Odds.